This is a Rabble Podcast Network show. New voices in your head. It's Radio Free Radio.
Hey, everybody. This is Joe from DOA. You know what? You're listening to the Ruckus on Rabble.ca. Yeah!
Hi, folks, and welcome to episode 2 of The Ruckus right here on the Rabble Podcast Network. My name's Kevin McGowan. We have a great episode for you guys this month. We are going to be heading to Vancouver and talking to Joe Keithley from DOA. They've been in the business 30 years, and they've just released a great new album called Northern Avenger. We're going to hear a track from that album and talk to Joe about the record, about how they recorded it, and about what it's like to be in a punk band for 30 years. Also, we're going to head off to Toronto to speak with Lull. They are a very cool, kind of down-tempo, electronic, jazzy outfit. Excellent music, and a very, very nice woman to talk to, Rosie. I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation I had with her. First interview segment, though, this time out, we're going to be heading to Ottawa, and I'm going to talk with Mr. Jeff Welch from the Reverb Syndicate. They have a very unique kind of sound and style. If you like surf rock, and if you like old spy movies, and if you like go-go dancers, I think you're really, really going to like the Reverb Syndicate. So right now, let's start things off by going up to Ottawa and talking with Mr. Jeff Welch. What's up with the go-go dancers?
What do you mean, what's up with the go-go dancers? What's not up with the go-go dancers?
Well, I mean, of all the bands I've seen over the years, and there is a lot in that list, none of them have had go-go dancers. What inspired you guys to get go-go girls?
Well, a lot of the times we hear bands, when they're talking to us, they're like, yeah, we talked about getting go-go dancers, or yeah, we thought it would be so great to have go-go dancers, and quite basically, I just don't think those bands are applying themselves because they never did. We just like to follow through with our thoughts. If we say we're going to do something, we're going to follow through. So we got us some go-go girls. And it is a bit of that when you play an instrumental music and you're in a band that doesn't have lyrics, you don't have that little bit of a connection to reach out to the audience. Because if you see people in the crowd, when they're watching a band, they like to sing along to the words. They have that one area where they can kind of connect with. And if you don't have that, you have to put on one heck of a stage show. And we find that the Go-Go Girls, particularly on our stage and on our live show, just kind of put us that little bit over the top. It's like, okay, this was great music. Everyone's having fun. Look, they've got girls on stage. They're dancing. They're having a great time too. I could connect with that. And it just kind of puts our live show just that little bit over the top.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I hadn't thought of the instrumental music angle that you just described. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and you want to admit it fits well with, you know, the style of music that we play, the whole go-go shimmy thing. I mean, that's right up the alley of the music we're playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it helps the stage show a lot.
Well, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you about, actually, is that your whole kind of spy mythology that you've created around the band. You know, everybody's got like a pseudonym. Where did you come up with that idea, that concept?
Well, when I decided to start this band with Mike Bradford, we talked about what type of music we're going to play. And when he said he wanted to play some form of traditional surf music, or at least a modern take on surf music, we thought we would need some form of imagery to draw from. Because again, we don't have lyrics per se to create and tell a story with. So what we had worked out together was, well, let's write soundtracks. Okay, soundtracks to what? Soundtracks to spy movies, like that 60s Our Man Flint kind of era spy movies. Okay, well, that's great. So let's create this mythical spy agency, and we'll all be agents, and then we can come up with adventures for our agents, which will essentially give us the imagery we need to populate and create our songs. Everything that we do is kind of like the scene to a spy movie. We thought, what's in a spy movie? Car chases. All right, let's write the soundtrack to a car chase. And that's how oil slicks and ejector seats came up. There was the scene at the beginning of the movie where the hero or the enemy is introduced and the villain's introduced and there's a big form of conflict. That's how Lunar Attack came about in our new record. So was just the needed element to give us the imagery to write our songs.
Of course, these new touring plans you're talking about, you're heading over to the UK.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty cool and new experience for you guys. Now, how did that come together? Well,
Mike, as we said before, he's currently residing over there full time. It's not a permanent move for him, but he really needed a change. He's lived in Ottawa, Canada for his entire life, and everybody at Thrum Point, they have to leave home. And he got to that point, and he, thought, well, Edinburgh sounds like a great place to live, and off he went. So while he was over there, he and I started looking into just opportunities that could come up for us to go and play there. I mean, this band is a great excuse to go do awesome things, and I'd never been to the UK, and a couple of the members hadn't been, and so we started looking into promoters out there who were down with the surf music, and there turns out to be a fair number of them. So we got in touch with them and said, hey, if we were coming over, would you host us for a night? And the responses started coming in. Sure, come on down. I mean, the way it works in the UK is that each club has a series of promoters that they give a night a week to, or in some cases, one night a month to. And in each of the clubs, there's at least one night a month that specializes in some form of garage rock and surf. And so all it took was hooking up with the right people, and the invites started flooding in. What was also funny was that a lot of these promoters had purchased our CD off of CD Baby. And they were like, oh yeah, heck, we know you. Come on down. If you're here, we'll put you up. So that's how it's started to come about.
Well, that's great. I mean, what a great response.
Oh yeah, it's kind of blowing my mind.
And how many shows are you guys going to be doing?
Well, like I said, we're going over for vacation, and we have 6 shows booked. We're basically going to be there for 10 days, and 6 of them we're already scheduled to play.
And this is full-on 4 guys, 2 girls, full reverb exposure every night?
Unfortunately, the Soviet sister Elite Go-Go Squad, they will not be able to make the trip overseas.
Aww.
I know. It's the price of gas being what it is one thing. When you're trying to fill a minivan, try filling a 747 with it. It's a pricey venture. I got this interesting thing today in my inbox. We're playing Montreal on Wednesday.
Right.
And there's this fellow who lives in Montreal who apparently is a big fan of the band, and he's all excited that we're coming. And he's learning how to play the charango. I had to look that.
No idea what that is.
Yeah, I had to look it up, and it's like this mandolin guitar hybrid kind of thing. Apparently, it's a Peruvian instrument, and he sent us an MP3 of him covering one of our songs on the charango.
No way.
I know, it's a bit of a trip.
That's awesome. How did it sound?
He's like, I'm still learning it. It's I'm still learning how to play, but here's my cover of what was the song? Oh yeah, I'm Not a Pleasure Unit by you guys. I hope you have fun with it. And we're like, oh wow, that's really cool. You should pick off the record. I think you should pick The Lonely Henchman off the record, because I think basically it's one of those songs that sums us up really, really well. It's a bit of the sleeper hit on the album. It's one of my personal favorites on Sputnik A Go-Go, because it's a little bit different from what we do with the rest of the album, but it's the perfect summation of who the band is.
picture, it's hanging on the wall. Your life is in your luggage that you're stowing down the hall. Your mirror's lying horizontal, tripping over empty bottles while your friends are outside. They're waiting for your call. You can't afford this lesson, but you bought it anyway. Your vocal cords are missing, there's so much you want to say. Your friend's advice is quintessential, you think they're all going mental. The insults were in jest, but you swallowed anyway. My love, how did you get this way, love? What brought on all this way, love? Open up your arms, the angels want to listen, but the devil you've been kissing all night long. You think you're very clever, but you guard yourself with hate. You see your life is chess, but you've castled far too late. I can't believe the innocence that I thought you could once possess. Your minions are all grinning, they're just counting down the days. When everything comes crashing, we'll be with you through and through. I see that silver lining, but you painted it with blue. You're skiing to the bottom, so you feel like you're on top. The rumors are all true, we're still waiting here for you. My love, how did you get this way, love? What brought on all this way, love? Open up your arms, the angels want to listen, but the devil you've been kissing all night long. There's more to life than this, you're still searching for the bliss you had the first time that you kissed the devil's leaves. Now you're washed up on the shore, there's no feeling anymore. Our love is growing tired and the warranty's expired. My love, how did you get this way, love? What brought on all this way, love? Open up your arms, the angels want to listen, but the devil you've been kissing all night long, love. How did you get this way, love? What brought on all this way, love? Open up your arms, the angels want to listen, but the devil you've been kissing.
Well, hi. Welcome back, and thanks for still listening to The Ruckus right here on the Rabble Podcast Network. That was a band called Trophy out of Toronto, and a new song of theirs called How Did You Get This Way? If you're interested in them, go to trophyband.com and you can find all sorts of information about upcoming shows, etc., and you can hear a couple more tracks from their forthcoming album. Before that, of course, we were chatting with Jeff Welch from the Reverb Syndicate, and I'm guessing you liked them because they are really good, and because I'm sure you liked them, you obviously would like to win a copy of their complete discography. Go to www.canadianruckus.com. Send me an email, and if you are one of the count 'em two, lucky winners on October 1st, I will personally send you both of their CDs via Canada Post. Sound good? I thought so. Okay, we're going to shift things up a little bit now. We're going to stick with Toronto, but a very different style. We're going to be talking now with Rose from Lull, and if you're into down-tempo or electronic music, these are the guys for you. Let's catch up with Lal in Toronto. As I was doing my research on you guys, I read a couple of interesting things about you and Nick, and how you would often kind of argue your way through the creation process.
Yeah, even through different interviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I
have different opinions.
I was wondering how that worked out, and how having a couple of new members has kind of changed that, if at all.
From a playing standpoint, not necessarily, just because we've been playing with Ruckus and with Ian for a long time. With Ian becoming a third compositional member, he actually, I think, has almost calmed it down.
Well,
he's pretty laid back. Sorry?
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty laid back, and he's sort of the balance between Nick and myself. And then with Nick and I, it's not like we fight, but we definitely butt heads. And so when we're working creatively, if there's something that either of us don't like, it's mostly me, like just having to really kind of state that, I want it to go this way, and kind of explaining that. And I also write the lyrics for all the music, so sometimes I also have an idea of the feel that I want to go for. And Nick and I sometimes have different opinions on what that feel is, so we have to sort of battle it out and then compromise, and Ian actually helps with that compromise. He never actually gets in any sort of battles with us.
So he's kind of that second vote, right, to pick a side, or how's that?
No, he just sort of, like, a lot of the time, because it'll be in our initial songwriting stages that Nick and I will have to. Ian comes in. It's hard to explain because we write every song quite differently. We don't have really one process, but Ian's work, he just never really. By the time we get to Ian to work with with the songs that we're working with, we've pretty much worked out a little bit between the two of us the idea. So when Ian comes in or steps in, the fight's already occurred. And then if we're writing a song all together, the three of us, it ends up going really smoothly. We just learn to compromise, just deal with each other's different opinions and work much more. I think over the years we've learned to work much better together.
Well, yeah, it has been 10 years, right? I guess you've developed a pretty good system by this point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I did read somewhere that you were, at least at one point, thinking about relocating. Going maybe to Germany?
Yeah, we're always thinking about relocating.
So what's the draw to kind of pick up and leave Toronto, and what's the pull from Germany or London or wherever else you're really thinking of going?
Well, I think the hard part about being in Canada, I feel like it's got a conservative art scene in general, not just within music. So trying to tour here, get an agent, or that's difficult here without having the proper backing, or I don't know if it's necessarily the style of music that we make, because I feel like a lot of Canadian artists have to leave in order to get appreciated back in Canada, which is unfortunate.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I don't know if I feel that speaks to, there's an old power system here that needs to change, and that's across the board, from like not just music but social agencies to like that I think across the board has to change. So for us, and also to tour this country is quite difficult, even independently. Like to get to Vancouver, it's just, you might as well fly to the UK because it's just as cheap or just as much.
Yeah.
So for us to be able to go to somewhere like Berlin, which is somewhere that we could afford, there's lots of Canadian musicians who are going there, and be able to tour within Europe, and also tap into, because in Europe there's also an older history of electronic music, but arts and activism connecting, much richer history there, and be able to tap into that and find those communities, and be able to tour relatively easily, hopefully. That's part of the reason why we want to go there and just discover that.
Yeah.
We would love to go to parts of India, parts of the West Indies, and set our lives up so we could go like for 6 months and then come back, work 6 months, go again for 6 months.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out how to do that. It's going to take us a while, but like I guess for us, Berlin is just cheap. We liked when we went there. We liked what we saw there. We've got some community there, and then it'd just be easy to travel and tour. Where this country, it's way too big. It's really big.
Well, I also read somewhere I saw a posting that you put up a year or so ago, actually asking for help maybe going to India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
Did you ever make it over there?
We did. I mean, that's I'm paying off my credit card as we speak, because we just had to make a decision. Are we going? Are we not going?
Yeah.
We applied for some grants. They didn't come in, so I'm paying off that debt. But that experience was amazing.
When was that?
That was last November.
Oh, November. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And how long were you there?
We were there for 3 weeks, and we were in Pakistan for a week, Kolkata for about 5 days, and then we went to Goa for about just under 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was going to Pakistan was amazing. The whole trip was amazing, but particularly Pakistan because of the media that we were getting about what was happening in Pakistan at that time. It was under martial law, and it was, at least in Lahore, it wasn't like that. It was definitely, there was police presence and there were activists who were protesting, but it wasn't. I guess the Pakistani community was not the way that it had been presented via the media here.
Right. What was the difference?
Well, it just, we met, people were so open and it wasn't tense, and it wasn't this, ultra-Islamic state that they keep trying to push at people. Like, there's a really interesting community there, young people, a lot of folks speak English, a lot of educated folks. I mean, that is attached to having privilege and having money to have those things. But it was interesting to meet that community. And talk to them and see what was going on, and go there and not, it wasn't this martial law that was happening there. You had to be careful, but it wasn't as bad as the way that the media had been portraying it.
Right.
So just talking to people and different types of folks, working class people, to seeing what was happening in Pakistan. It was really interesting to go there and feel welcomed. Feel welcomed, and that was really, really amazing. And see an arts festival there. I mean, you never really hear tons about the art scene in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And so many Muslim countries get this bad rap of not embracing art or not showing the progressive communities within these different countries. And there's a complete artistic community there, from all over Pakistan, and who go there. And it was just amazing to see and feel that.
The London Bridge really kind of hit me. It's very a heavy jazz kind of influence. At least
and
I
we
saw it
actually
anyway.
did that in London.
Oh, really?
Which was really interesting. And on that particular track, we worked with a young Jamaican Brit piano player, classically trained piano player named Torville Jones. And he just came over and played it, just freestyled it, and we kept the actual recording. And we didn't edit it, nothing. And it's a really bad piano in our manager's house. Well, not bad, but badly tuned. And,
right.
And we just stuck a mic in it and we did it, and it worked out really, really well. And we actually just came back from the UK like a couple of weeks ago when we performed that track there. And it's always it was weird to perform this track that's criticizing, the UK.
Right.
But they got it. Like, many of those people, it was at the London Literary Festival, but a lot of them got it. Like, nobody came up to us and were upset with us. So, I mean, even if they were, there's not much you could do about it, but it was interesting to actually create that song there and then go back and perform it.
London Bridge is falling down. People run scared. Deja vu in Brixton town. It's time we prepare. This is war. It's time we said it aloud. We the poor, take back what's wrong.
and that was Lull with London Bridge. Now, if you'd like more information on them, go to lalforest.com. That's LALFOREST.com. Our next guest doesn't need much of an introduction, really, but I'm going to give him a little one anyway. I've been a big fan of DOA for a long time. I've seen them a bunch of times. I bought his book called I Shithead, and I actually went to a reading and had him autograph it. I'm looking at it right now, and I remember, hey Kevin, talk minus action equals 0, Joey Shithead Keithley. Ladies and gentlemen, here is my very fun conversation with Joe Keithley. One thing, obviously, it's been grabbing a lot of DOA headlines is your producer on this record, Mr. Bob
Yeah,
Locke.
no, he's great. Yeah.
And I know, like, you've known him, or at least you knew him, like 30-odd years ago when he was producing and recording bands around Vancouver. I'm curious because, I mean, I'm a fan. There's a lot of people out there who don't know really who he is or who you are. My exposure to him is, the Metallica movie. Right.
Right.
I saw him in that. But what was? How did he affect your approach recording the album, and what kind of influence did he have on you?
It's pretty the way he went at stuff. He heard the demos, and then he made comments. That's actually end up. He said he really liked Poor Poor Boy, and he said, "Why don't you write another ska song?" So that pretty well the last song on the album was the Set Them Free song, and I wrote that like in an afternoon, and I thought, okay, and then we demoed it and it sounded pretty good, so it ended up being on the album, right? And kind of stuff like that, or like Who'll Stop the Rain, we're playing that in G, and he's going like, he says, this is really great, except your voice doesn't suit it, so we changed the key. Or he'd go like, you know what, with the way you're playing that, that's too fast, or the way you're playing that, that's too slow. And it was pretty funny in the studio. I remember one time we're like, we're playing, and he'd yell back through the talkback mic. He's in the booth, and we're out in the studio, and I go, how's that sound? And he says, when are you actually going to start trying? Was the answer back from Bob. And then I'd answer back to him. I go, well, as soon as you start producing, right? It had a pretty good camaraderie to it, right? And he's not like a heavy-handed producer. Like just a good producer will take a band, figure out what they do well, and just try and do that. At least that's what he did with us, to my mind, anyways, right? So, and sometimes you would say this song's going on too long, right? Is there a way of shortening it? Like it's a good song, but it's like you made a punk rock song into a 5-minute song. It's just repeating riffs too many times or whatever, that kind of thing, right? So stuff like that, right? So, and then the feel. He says, okay, this is a good feel, but it could be better. He was really on the drummer. For Tom Jones, right? And he just go, okay, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and he really didn't give him a hard time, but he wrote him pretty hard. Go, okay, you want to make this happen, this is what you gotta do, right? In a nice way.
Oh, of course, constructive criticism or whatever, right?
Yeah, and he was, and he had another guy with him, Jamie Kosh, who was his assistant or right-hand man, and he did a great job, right? So he was like, he was the kind of the buffer between Bob and us type thing, right? So.
I mean, I'm curious what you're thinking of bands who now have MySpace and all these other kind of newfangled techno tools. Yeah. Are you like, man, I wish we had that, or do you think it's really a necessary thing for bands?
No, well, okay, sure, it would have made it way easier if we had that, but then again, what would have done it would totally change the experience, right? So would say, and I think that's why all that stuff is like really funny, like because we go down to Zulu Records or Friends Records and just look through the magazine rack and write down the names and numbers of people to contact, and because we couldn't afford to buy the magazines, so and the guys who run the record stores, they didn't care. They still like, it's DOA doing their usual thing, right? Because we're eager beavers, right, and we're out to conquer the world type thing, and. But as far as nowadays doing that, I think it's a great thing. It's a great way to get your stuff around, because you got to realize that when we started, there was maybe I don't know, like maybe 500 punk rock bands in the world. Now there's like I don't know, like 50,000 or something, right?
Because it's got to be
Probably
millions,
there's got to be like 10, 2 or 3 in every small town, and say in Ottawa, I bet there's like 100, right, or more, right? At some form or other, right? You may not see them playing, but they're out there, And so what's happened now, and with like record stores, like you used to be able to find a lot of interesting stuff, not in the big chains, not on your old school records on wheels and stuff like that, but there's usually a specialty store that had some good stuff, and in the small towns, maybe those chains would carry some more hip stuff, but now record stores, except for the really hip ones, their selection has gone down from maybe carrying 4,000 titles to 1,000 titles. And certain periods of the year, like say now September, you know what the shelves are going to be full of? The best of U2, the U2 anthology, the DVD show of U2 in Berlin. U2, you know what I mean? And then put in all the Rolling Stones, and put in all the Pink Floyd. Then you start to have some new, more mega bands, the best of Coldplay, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So for bands of the scale that are, like, say, smaller than DOA, like you'll get a little bit of DOA in stores like that, but if the bands aren't known, they can't get their stuff out there. So the World Wide Web is giving people a voice and a way for people to hear you around the world. So I think it's really great, actually.
Like when you're selling stuff through Sudden Death, do you find you're selling more directly through your website or through iTunes, or what's kind of the business model for your company?
Like a lot through the downloads, like through iTunes, and a pile of other ones, much smaller ones, but they all add up. Like probably deal with like 200. I don't personally deal with like 200 different download sites. They don't all carry everything that we put out, but it's all there. So the combo between, like at the Sudden Death website, iTunes and such, and stores, record stores, then, they mix together like with certain percentages, right? So let's say now the download stuff is like 30% of what we do. A couple years ago, it was like 10%. So
right.
And now we've just put on the ability to download the new DOA record on our website, and so we will probably do that with all the other tracks too, right? All the other albums, right? And because I know like 2-3 years from now, 50% of the biz is going to be downloads, right? So.
Well, I saw on the on your album art actually, on Northern Avenger, that you had a Factor grant.
Yes, we did. We benefited from the Canadian public and Canadian government largesse, that's for sure, right? So.
Well, and I mean that's one of the programs that is being cut, by a conservative government.
Well, I know
it's like cut down.
They cut a lot of the film things too, right? In Canada Council, and then they claimed they had actually put more money into the arts since they got elected than they were cutting, which is like a bunch of bullshit, right? So.
Right. So
yeah, I don't know what to do. I mean, maybe Factor dries up, and when I told I have like a lot of friends in the United States because I spent so long down there, and I tell them about stuff like Factor and Canada Arts Council, they're like, "What? Huh?" And they go, "You guys really are socialists up there." I go, "No, it's just a little bit. It's a little bit like Europe, right? In Europe, they sponsor all sorts of things, like in the arts, and Hey, you know what we should be trying to be? We should be trying to be more like France. Free university education for everybody. Sponsor the arts. Flourish Canadian culture, right? I mean, there's a country they don't do everything right, but there's a lot of things that we could take away from France, right? That are good, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And when people get pissed off, what they do? The Canadians don't do anything. In France, they get around. They dump 10,000 pounds of butter around the Arc de Triomphe, right? They're 50,000 pounds of cow dung, and the government freaks out, and they put some pressure on them, right?
Yeah. I mean, what was that process like for you? I mean, you're DOA, you're an established band, you go and apply for this program. What's it like for somebody? I mean, obviously you're of a higher stature than Joe's Garage Band across the street from me, but how does it work?
It's really difficult. We ended up getting this a status as a label because we'd sold enough records. So the really great thing was we got away from having to go to a jury, and a jury is like 3 3 people. It's not really a jury. It's like a sound jury, and they'll listen to your tape or your CD or CDR and go, yeah, this is good. No, that sucks, right? And I found some of the stuff that got rejected. They were like whoever did the jury stuff were complete fucking nitwits in my mind, anyways, right? So now we're in a good state because we've actually proved that the label and the band and all that can sell records, so we don't have to go through this process. But for everybody who's not in that state, which is like 95% of the people that apply to a thing like Factor, they got to go through this process, and it's like maddening, right? And the amount of paperwork. The paperwork's important because it gets, they used to be a little bit loosey-goosey, then they got audited and all these like things weren't right, and so now every dollar's got to be totally properly accounted for back to the federal government, right? Or they administer these kind of programs, right? So, because you don't want something like what happened with the Liberal Party in Quebec, the ad scam thing, right?
Oh yeah.
That becomes just like a totally like that, ridiculous waste of people's money, right? So I mean, I would encourage people to try, artists to try this stuff. It's really tough, but there's a bunch of different stuff out there, the Canada Council grants and stuff like that. But I mean, there's a lot of people trying to get it, and not so much money to go around. So it's not like it's not worth trying, but it can be pretty frustrating.
And that was Human Bomb from DOA and their brand spanking new album called Northern Avenger. Go to suddendeath.com if you'd like to buy yourself a copy of that. Or, if you're a cheapskate, you can win it for free. Go to CanadianRuckus.com, that's my blog. I have one copy of that album to give away. So if you send me an email before October 1st, I'll put your name in a hat, and when I pick one out, you could be the big winner. I will send it to you myself via Canada Post. Also, we have a contest going with the Reverb Syndicate. Again, go to CanadianRuckus.com, send me an email, and I will maybe hook you up. That's right, you could win both of their albums. I'm going to pick winners for the DOA and Reverb Syndicate contests on the 1st of October 2008. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much to Joey and DOA. Thanks to Rose and Lull, and thanks to Jeff and the Reverb Syndicate. I hope you enjoyed the show. Go to my blog, tell me what you think of the show, and tell me if there's any other bands in Canada you think we should be talking to. All right? Thanks again, and we hope to see you again next time. See you later.